Chapter 47. You are listening at novelfull.audio. TSK. Taking a deep look at Chinger, who was sleeping at the root of the tree and shining with starlight, Yu Ziyu also smacked his mouth, not sure about the others, but there is one thing that Yu Ziyu is certain of, that is a monster that combines the strengths of aliens and humans, and is about to be born. Others don't know, so doesn't he know it yet? In addition to her two major talents, the fire elemental talent and the spiritual talent, this girl also has a large tilt in human resources. As for Yu Ziyu, he promised her a large amount of life essence, and even used tree roots to nourish her soul. Just thinking about this made Yu Ziyu feel a little numb, not to mention, this girl now actually possesses such massive resources. In this way, what if you still can't rise? It is estimated that no human beings will be able to rise. Fortunately, I have the golden finger evolution point in hand, otherwise, given time, I may not be able to suppress this girl like you. Sighing in her heart, Yu Ziyu was also a little surprised by this girl's opportunity. This kind of opportunity is a perfect template for the protagonist. Ordinary people may not be able to suppress it, but now, Chinger uses his tree roots to nourish his soul. It can be said that we have made something like a contract with him, symbiosis? No, more accurately, it should be companionship. Chinger needs to be attached to his existence. Without Yu Ziyu, Chinger would not exist, that's it. It is precisely because of this that Yu Ziyu is confident that this girl is under her control. Moreover, in essence, they have no conflict of interest. One is a ghost and the other is a tree, one is virtual and the other is real, but both are. She is an alien among aliens. In this extraordinary era, meeting each other is already a great fate, and supporting each other is even more destined. Therefore, from this point of view, Yu Ziyu also regards this girl as a confidant from the bottom of his heart. Training. And now, this girl has not let him down. In time, Chinger will definitely become his right-hand man. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu's eyes looking at Chinger became 3 points gentler. Crack. As the branch broke, a drop of rich life essence slowly fell into the starlight above the tree root. However, what Yu Ziyu did not notice at this time was that just where the life essence touched the ball, the moment of light, deep in the light, a sleeping girl with her eyes closed suddenly raised the corners of her mouth. Host. People with a touch of attachment, Chinger fell into a deeper sleep. Time flies, and in a blink of an eye it is winter, with heavy snow falling deep in the mountains. I saw only a vast expanse of white between the sky and the earth. Snowflakes were falling from the sky. It was like a white tent was pulled up all around, and the earth became covered with silver. However, in the silver-covered sky and earth, the hazy mist still lingers on the mountains, but this is not scary. What is really scary is that this heavy fog has covered hundreds of mountains. At this time, if you look down from the sky, starting from one corner, the fog runs northeast to southwest, more than 100 kilometers long and 30 or 40 kilometers wide, all shrouded in hazy white fog. There is a mountain peak every few hundred meters. Hundreds of peaks for hundreds of kilometers is really not an empty statement. However, thankfully, this heavy fog only spread in the mountains and has not spread towards the city. Otherwise, what is waiting is not the human army stationed outside the mountain, always vigilant, but there was a real hail of bullets, and even artillery fire. But to be honest, is the artillery fire that humans are so proud of really useful against these lifelike mist? Smiling, Yu Ziyu, who was deep in the fog, also had a strange look on his face. Now, several months have passed. But these days, Yu Ziyu didn't do much. In addition to maintaining the spread of the thick fog, another thing is to continuously strengthen himself through the evolutionary points obtained from hunting the pets he raised. For several months, hundreds, or even thousands of evolutionary points, Yu Ziyu used to strengthen his thousands of branches. I have to say, this kind of consumption is really terrifying. However, compared to the consumption, the gain is worth it. At this moment, if you look up at Bayou Canyon, astonishingly, one could see a green waterfall tens of meters wide descending from the sky. It is suspected that the Milky Way falls into the sky, that's what it says, and these are the thousands of branches that Yu Ziyu has strengthened now. Each branch is LV2 according to its level, not to mention anything else. The combat power of a single branch is enough to kill ordinary mutant beasts that reach the 7th or 8th level, or even the 9th level. Now, Yu Ziyu has hundreds of such branches. one can imagine what a terrifying sight it was to have hundreds of branches all blasted and killed. The sky collapses. Earth cracks. What's even more shocking is that Yu Ziyu's branches now extend to about 100 meters, in other words, everything within 100 meters with itself as a radius has become his domain. Call. Taking a deep breath, Yu Ziyu finally felt powerful, in the true sense. If based on human classification of peak spiritual power, his current peak spiritual power would be around 70,000 to 80,000 at least, and if such terrifying spiritual power appeared in a mutated beast, according to Yu Ziyu's guess, this mutant beast was enough to destroy a county in half a day. Of course, as a willow tree, Yu Ziyu does not have such ability. However, if a beast with a peak spiritual power of about 70,000 to 80,000 appears within 100 meters of it, Yu Ziyu believes that it will not survive tomorrow. And this is Yu Ziyu's confidence. In close combat at the same level, he is invincible. To put it in pretentious terms, that within a short distance, I am invincible. Anyone who dares to offend his existence within 100 meters of him is either not born, or has been reduced to a corpse. With a smile, Yu Ziyu felt quite confident. P.S. Please give me flowers and collect them. Asterisk. Thanks to book friend Bing Shui Piao Ling for the reward. Thank you very much. Smiley face. Chapter 48. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He is now at the pinnacle of the first level of transcendence. He only needs to strengthen the tree roots again, and then with the help of evolution points, he can hope to break through to the second level of transcendence. And what does the second level of extraordinary mean? The peak spiritual power of hundreds of thousands, even if it is just active, is enough to shatter mountains and cut off rivers, just like the current Yu Ziyu, although he only has 70,000 to 80,000 spiritual power. If he chooses to explode, with his terrifying combat power that is comparable to the ordinary second level extraordinary, he can destroy the 200 to 300 meter long Bayou Canyon in an instant. Destroy them all, even level them to the ground. According to genius information from humans, the extraordinary second level is already the incarnation of disaster. But let's talk about the extraordinary first level first. It is reported that in the past few months, the extraordinary first-order mutated beasts are no longer a legend. Such terrifying monsters are not uncommon in the depths of the sea. And how terrifying is such a first-level mutant beast, or even a sea monster? They are already close to demonization and have a preliminary sense of self-thinking. They can keenly detect crises and respond to them. What is even more frightening is that these monsters are not afraid of most weapons such as bullets, and their combat effectiveness is extremely terrifying. Among the discoveries that humans have made, a mutated octopus with a peak spiritual power of more than 80,000 wreaked havoc in the waters near the Cherry Blossom Country, and even successfully sunk a 10,000-ton cargo ship. And because of this incident, the entire human race knows the horror of the first level of transcendence. It is not something that ordinary thermal weapons can match. If it becomes widespread, it will be enough to threaten the entire human race. To this end, experts from hundreds of countries came to the front and began the first exchange of research and discussions. However, thankfully, after 10 days of research, they came to an unquestionable conclusion, that is, it is difficult, really difficult to become a first-level transcendent, no less than the legendary carp turning into a dragon and a green snake turning into a dragon. That is a leap in the level of life, and even a true sublimation of the soul. In this way, the entire human race can feel at ease. However, just when people's hearts stabilized, a real undercurrent emerged, because the Chinese Federation and the Free Alliance across the Pacific Ocean discovered a very terrifying fact. That is, on top of the first level of extraordinary, there is also the second level of extraordinary. Hundreds of thousands of spiritual powers surged through his body, making him the embodiment of disaster in the true sense. If you say it's the first level of transcendence, it only threatens a city. It is no longer a lie to say that someone of the second level of transcendence can destroy a city by himself. Their existence is disaster and destruction. Unless mankind uses nuclear weapons, the weapon of the nation, it will not be easy to eliminate them in an absolute sense. Of course, we cannot rule out the possibility of using the army to kill him. Therefore, the second level of extraordinary, also known as disaster level, is a life form that has a high possibility of causing great damage to a town. What is worth mentioning here is that even if they are both extraordinary second-level disaster-level people, their strength will be different due to different races and spiritual powers. At a weak disaster level, some troops may die, a strong disaster level may put a country at risk of a national crisis, for example, for a small country like the Sakura country. Without the support of the Federation, a powerful disaster level would be enough to cause the entire Sakura country to face catastrophe. Call. Taking a deep breath, Yu Ziyu felt a flash of fire in his heart. Extraordinary level 2, you only need to reach extraordinary level 2 to be able to threaten a country like Sakura country. You can imagine how exciting this is. Although it is not enough to make big countries like the Federation fear it, the power of the second level of transcendence cannot be ignored by big countries. Of course, what Yu Ziyu is thinking about now is definitely a powerful disaster level. As for the weak disaster level, given its background, it is impossible to achieve it, no matter what. There is an underground spiritual river for him to absorb, and there is a golden finger to bless him. If he is given enough time to develop, he will still be reduced to a weak disaster level, which is unreasonable. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu couldn't help but think of the extraordinary third level who had millions of spiritual powers above the second level. If the human inference is correct, the power of the third level of extraordinary power is no longer something that small countries can deal with. It must be a terrifying existence that only big countries can deal with all their strength, and such a being has a taboo name among humans. Disaster level. It is a disaster and a disaster. Unless a being of the same level is born, mankind can only deal with it with nuclear weapons. Of course, it's just a response. According to the speculations of the Spiritual Power Research Institute, millions of spiritual powers, even when aggregated together, are enough to create an invisible stance that can resist nuclear weapons to a certain extent. Not to mention, some mutant beasts are best at defense. If it is really this kind of mutated beast that is good at defense and transforms into an extraordinary third-level disaster level, please be prepared to use all the power of the great nation. Because that is definitely the most terrifying disaster, and this is the real terrifying thing about the revival of spiritual energy and the advent of the extraordinary era. The strong do not care about race or origin. If they are lucky enough to seize the spiritual power of heaven and earth, even an ant trampled on by humans can become the overlord of a party. And here, the most fortunate thing for mankind is that the advent of the extraordinary era has only taken away mankind's electronic communications, but has not taken away mankind's weapons. Otherwise, the human race will be reduced to the bottom of the food chain. But now, the human race relies on thermal weapons, and its innate starting point is higher than other races. Of course, a high starting point is a high starting point, but if humans don't make progress, they will sooner or later be surpassed by these crazy evolving extraordinary creatures. According to Yu Ziyu's guess, if a terrifying life form of the third extraordinary level, disaster level, is really born, then the status of human beings will also face the greatest impact in history. Heaven and hell are all within easy reach. It's no wonder that in just a few months, no less than 10 institutions similar to Spiritual Power Research Institutes were born in the Federation alone. Not only Yu Ziyu thought of this, but also humans, worrying and fearing. P.S. Please collect and reward. When it came to dividing combat power, Crimson referred to a lot of information. Asterisk caret caret asterisk. Hope everyone likes it. By the way, it will be on the shelves soon, so remember to support it. Chapter 49. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's fast, really fast. The angle of view is raised. Looking at the mist-filled 100,000 mountains, Yu Ziyu also has deep expectations. It is impossible for him to reach the third level of extraordinary in a short time. After all, he is a tree and a spirit. It is also a road of exhaustion, and all aspects of knowledge require continuous accumulation. But other mutated beasts are different. After all, they are a group of beasts with insufficient intelligence. They evolve crazily because of some opportunities that they do not know how to converge. Finally, with the accumulation of strength, they forcefully break through. It is not impossible to reach the third level of the extraordinary. Once such a third level of extraordinary is born, the conflict between humans and mutated beasts will completely explode. By then, a truly extraordinary era will come. Of course, such a mutation, even if wild monsters break through to the third level of transcendence, they will fall back to their original form due to insufficient accumulation. For example, leaving fatal weaknesses, or in other words, insufficient lifespan. However, no matter which way it is, some inevitable sacrifices have been made. It has just barely completed the accumulation of time and evolved. Such mutated beasts are not a threat to Yu Ziyu, but they are a huge threat to humans, therefore, Yu Ziyu is really looking forward to it. Looking forward to this, the disaster level, mutated beast emerged, because its existence is enough to attract the attention of all mankind in a short time. It is the principle to shoot the first bird. If given the choice, Yu Ziyu would not be willing to become the first extraordinary third-level creatures. After all, in the face of the entire human race, Yu Ziyu believed that no matter how powerful the third-level extraordinary people were, they would fall and become their research materials. As for how humans knew about the birth of the third-level extraordinary people, there was no need to think about it. Just when Yu Ziyu broke through to the first level of the extraordinary, 17 or 8,000 spiritual power fluctuations were discovered by humans. Such vast fluctuations that move millions of spiritual powers, anyone who is not a fool should be able to catch them. In this way, the extraordinary creature's breakthrough is really extremely dangerous, not only facing divine punishment, but also man-made disasters. With a wry smile, Yu Ziyu also thought that he was about to break through to the second level of extraordinary. If he can't come up with a proper method to block human spiritual detection in a short time, then it is very likely that soon after his breakthrough, a nuclear weapon will fall. Of course, ordinary mutant beasts do not need to consider this. If they cannot be beaten, can they also be unable to run? But he... Haha. He smiled awkwardly, and Yu Ziyu's gaze also went deep into the earth. For a moment, what caught his eyes was a 1,000-meter-long network, like a giant net, going deep into rock cracks and squeezing into the depths of the earth, woven by tree roots. Giant net, and this is Yu Ziyu's biggest trump card. If pressed, he can overturn several kilometers of land in an instant and achieve a true Earth Dragon stand-up. Even if he falls into a desperate situation, Yu Ziyu can still take root. The roots of the main tree hundreds of meters deep in the earth serve as a medium to trigger the underground spiritual river, thus setting off a big earthquake that sweeps through countless mountains and even cities. Of course, the result of this is that Yu Ziyu is probably going to die. The trump card is indeed a trump card, and it is also a very terrifying trump card. It is estimated that the power is almost comparable to that of a peak existence among extraordinary second-order creatures. But it is also Yu Ziyu's biggest constraint: roots. Trees are the only ones. To maintain the foundation, thinking of this, Yu Ziyu has the urge to vomit blood. If he were a mutant beast, even if it was just an ordinary mutant beast, his life would definitely be much more comfortable than now. Unlike now, he has to consider being killed by humans at every turn. Danger of discovery, cough. Yu Ziyu was a little helpless, but before Yu Ziyu could speak, a voice suddenly sounded not far away from Yu Ziyu. Master, do you like snow? Looking for the sound, I saw a girl with long hair standing quietly on the white snow. She was dressed in red makeup and her hazy figure looked like a ghost, and her beautiful eyes were staring in the snow. At a glance, this beautiful figure with red makeup is enchanting, with a touch of indescribable charm. He after entering the 9th level, there is only one step left to step into the existence of the first level of extraordinary, compared with before. Her figure became even more solid, but within the solidity, there was a hint of mistiness, as if she could switch at will. Of course, the most important thing is that He today is really moving, not only that the figure is even more temperamental. There is a beautiful woman in the north, who will captivate the country and the city. Seeing this scene, Yu Ziyu couldn't help but think of this sentence. I don't like snow very much. As he spoke, Yu Ziyu stared at the girl in the distance, hesitated for a moment, and then added, as a plant, most people don't like winter. 2. Nodding slightly, He also smiled playfully. Then, she lifted up her red dress and walked slowly towards Yu Ziyu's body with small steps. As always, she gently stroked Yu Ziyu's thick trunk. Her expression was, but there is an indescribable complexity, respect, admiration, yearning, and, not seeing anything more, Yu Ziyu was a little helpless. Over the months, it wasn't just him who was growing, even He is growing up. It's just that her growth is too fast, not only in terms of strength, but also in terms of character. However, there is no way around it. During the day, she was not called He but was called He. She was one of the most famous geniuses in major spiritual power research institutes. At a young age, he has already reached the 8th level, making him the top expert among all human beings. Some people call her Flame Princess, some people call her Flaming Fairy. Behind every title, there is a heavy meaning of genius. As a wisp of ghost, in order not to reveal her identity, she can only better wear this mask called linger, and in Yu Ziyu's words, if you wear the mask for a long time, you can't take it off. As a result, I Chinger's true personality has also been affected, so that now there is an extra ray of humanity, yes, human nature. In other words, the mind is complicated and there are many ideas, and when this kind of human nature appears in a ghost, there is something indescribably weird. Perhaps Chinger regards Yu Ziyu as her only support. As a result, her feelings towards Yu Ziyu are becoming more and more complicated now, so complicated that even Yu Ziyu can see the weirdness. P.S. Please collect and reward. Thank you for your support. Thank you. Reading books on May Day is a joy. Recharge 100 and get 500 VIP points. Grab a deposit now. Activity time, April 29th to May 3rd. Chapter 50. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chinger, is there anything big happening on the human side now? That the atmosphere was a little awkward, and Yu Ziyu had no choice but to change the topic. Is it a big deal? Holding her delicate chin, Chinger rested her head on the thick tree trunk, seeming to be meditating, but for a moment, as if she thought of something, her eyes flickered slightly and she responded. Recently, a natural spiritual stone mine seems to have been discovered in the northwest region, and more than a dozen spiritual power research institutes are fighting over it. Forehead. After being stunned for a moment, Yu Ziyu did not react. Lingsher mine. Seemingly aware of Yu Ziyu's doubts, Chinger also explained. Spiritual stone refers to a special ore that contains a large amount of spiritual power. The spiritual power in this ore is very pure and can be absorbed directly. It is also one of the few substances discovered by humans that can speed up cultivation. Some experts have even analyzed that the emergence of spirit stone mines will allow humans to catch up with the evolution of other extraordinary creatures in a short period of time. Listening to Chinger's explanation, Yu Ziyu's branches couldn't stop trembling. Faintly, there were 10,000 grass and mud horses running wildly in his heart. Let me rub it, I'm convinced. Why are you still playing like this? Doesn't this mean that the greatest advantages of extraordinary creatures are gone? Although I had thought that humans would find ways to catch up with the evolution of other extraordinary creatures, when I actually heard it, Yu Ziyu was still confused. This must have come too suddenly. Yu Ziyu was a little caught off guard by the suddenness. He also planned to show off his power in front of humans after achieving the 3rd level of extraordinary, but who would have thought that Chinger suddenly gave him a ring? Humans actually found a way to catch up with other humans in a short time. Methods for the evolution of extraordinary creatures. Damn, this is a big deal. My heart was digging, and Yu Ziyu also took a deep breath, but at this time, it seemed that he could see Yu Ziyu's nervousness, and Chinger also consoled him. Master, these are just expert analyses, and their credibility is not high. I feel it is an ironclad fact. He responded casually, and Yu Ziyu became more and more sure. Even his roots can absorb the underground spiritual river. How could humans not be able to absorb the pure spiritual power contained in the spiritual stone mine? Moreover, this operation can't help but make Yu Ziyu thought of some ancient legends about cultivating immortals. In those legends, humans are not as talented as other races, but in the end they cultivated with many spiritual objects such as spirit stones and mines, and became the overlords of the world in one fell swoop. And now, the situation of humans is the same as those. Exactly the same. The same talents are not as good as those of animals and plants. The same is the discovery of ores containing spiritual power. I walked away, and the situation suddenly collapsed. He couldn't help complaining again, but Yu Ziyu took the initiative to suppress the impetuousness rising in his heart. There are some things where impatience is useless, and all he can do now is wait. Of course he will wait. At the same time, he also had to start making some preparations. It is the kingly way to cope with all changes by remaining unchanged. However, what remains unchanged is that he is strong enough. Thinking about it this way, his progress in all aspects will be accelerated. Thinking of this, Yu Ziyu's gaze up to the sky. een. One after another, 8 streams of light from far away were like arrows leaving the string, and they were all counted in the sky, and when I looked up, I was shocked to see that they were 8 peregrine falcons that were only as big as a fist, san. 8 pets raised by Yu Ziyu, however, unlike other mutated beasts, their size increases as their strength increases. These 8 little guys actually became smaller and smaller as their strength increased. Is concentration the essence? She laughed in her heart, and Yu Ziyu also felt funny. Of course, even if they are reduced in size, their terror cannot be ignored. Now they have all reached the 7th level. The black glowing wings shook slightly and swept across the flying snow. What's even more surprising is that when they want to dive, one side of their wings turns into a black lightning. Jab pull. In an instant, the blade-like back of the cliff passed by, leaving only bottomless ravines. These guys are becoming more and more powerful as sky overlords. As he murmured, Yu Ziyu also shone brightly. The peregrine falcon is his eyes and ears in the sky, and it is also the only way Yu Ziyu can check the sky now. With the power of their 8 little guys, plus the assistance of Bai He, who is now at the 6th level, they truly dominate the sky of the misty mountains. Until now, there are no birds in the mist-shrouded mountains that dare to challenge them. However, if it had been before, Yu Ziyu would have been satisfied, but now, he suddenly learned that humans can use spiritual stones. Mine is speeding up training, and Yu Ziyu is also a little unable to sit still. Call. Taking a deep breath, Yu Ziyu looked at the 8 peregrine falcons flying across the sky and turned his gaze again. For a moment, what came into view was a lake. This lake was opened by Yu Ziyu before, which can effectively speed up the cultivation of the mutated beasts under him. And now, in the center of Linghu Lake, there is a white crane tapping the lake's surface. It spread its wings, stretched its neck, raised its head and sprayed water, spraying water columns. The water splashed on the calm lake, and small circles appeared, and the reflection of the white crane could also be seen. This is Yu Ziyu's most clean and aloof pet. White crane, race, mutated white crane, level, enter the 6th level, Adel talent, crane's cry, a sharp cry that can break through gold and stone and pierce the sky. Special ability, the white crane spreads its wings are like blades, capable of cutting most materials. Another pet with good combat power. However, compared to actual combat, even if it risked its life, it could not beat the peregrine falcon. As beings at the top of the food chain, the peregrine falcons have taught the white crane how to be a human more than once. It was also for this reason that Bai He succumbed obediently to Yu Ziyu and sought the so-called asylum. It's time to send them on a hunt. With a thought in his heart, Yu Ziyu also used the branches to convey some information to their minds. P.S. Please collect and support. *******. Thank you for your support. Thank you very much. Crimson worked hard on the code.